Now, I want to put this tweet up from the New York Post saying this. The DA there in L.A. County said today he does not support the resentencing of Lyle and Eric Menendez because the brothers have repeatedly lied about why they killed their parents at their Beverly Hills home back in 1989. Well, our colleague there at Fox 11 in Los Angeles, Christina Gonzalez, she has covered this story for a very long time, and she joins us. Christina, good to see you here. Would you describe this today by DA Hochman as the case now coming to a screeching halt when it comes to the future of the Menendez brothers, or otherwise here? What say you?
You know what it felt like? It felt like I was back, because I covered both trials. It felt like I was back in trial, listening again to the DA making their closing statements, because what he did, in essence, is he laid out the entire case again and saying in the process that I'm not asking the brothers if they want to be resentenced, if they want to be considered for a different, shorter, better sentence. We're not asking them to admit they were not sexually abused. We're asking them, well, listen to what he's asking them to say.
If the Menendez brothers at some point unequivocally, sincerely, and fully accept complete responsibility for all their criminal actions, acknowledge that the self-defense defense was phony, and their parents weren't going to kill them the night of August 20th when they murdered them in cold blood. Acknowledgements of all the lies they have told for the past over 30 years. We too, in the district attorney's office, will reconsider whether or not we would want to go forward with a resentencing motion.
LA County DA Nathan Hochman wants nothing less than the complete refutal from the Menendez's brothers of their defense. Eric and Lyle are serving life in prison for the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, and they've always maintained they feared for their lives after threatening to go public with accusations of sexual abuse by Jose Menendez.
Their defense was not about sexual abuse, because I know that issue has come up many times, but about self-defense.
And the District Attorney of Los Angeles, Nathan Hochman, will be a total
Reaction from Menendez family members who maintain the sexual abuse should be taken into consideration.
This idea that Eric and Lyle have not taken full responsibility or accountability for their actions is absurd.
On Facebook, Lyle Menendez posting his reaction, including, quote, asking someone to deny the reality of their life to get out of prison is something out of a really bad movie. The brothers' attorney, Mark Garagos, on TMZ with his reaction.
There isn't a single living family member or victim who endorses Hochman's position today, number one. Number two, there isn't a single living family member or victim who was notified of what he was going to do today, which is a violation of Marcy's law. And he has completely misread the resentencing statute.
And as you're listening to Garagos there, I think you probably agree with me. I don't think he's going to ask his clients to say that they were not in fear of their lives, let alone that they asked other people to lie for them. Some of the things Hochman would like them to admit. At this point, the next hearing is March 20th, and we'll have to see. The court is going to decide whether there is a resentencing or not, and then it would go to the parole board. And then you have the governor and the possible clemency situation. He's asked right now that he get an assessment of whether the brothers would be a risk to the public if they were out in the public. So that's where we're at that, but they do have that avenue. But as of this point, the DA is very specific. They're not going to say yay to a resentencing like Ascon was asking for unless they hear this from the brothers, which I think is unlikely. But we'll have to see. It's the Menendez case. Who knows what's going to happen? Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Christina Gonzalez there live for us in Los Angeles with a word of caution, as always. Christina, thanks so much. We'll talk soon. All right, in the meantime here, we do want to talk about this case a little bit even further with some of our friends and colleagues there in Los Angeles, including legal analyst Neama Rahmani. He and I have discussed this case a lot, and he joins me. Neama, good to see you here. You just watched Christina Gonzalez's report there, and I have to ask, is District Attorney Hochman sending mixed signals about whether he likes the resentencing idea or not? He was very declarative in that press conference that the brothers have to say more, admit more, confess more, do more in order for him to come on board here. But the resentencing hearing continues and will go forward. Is that somewhat discordant, Neama?
Well, there's so many things going on here, Andrew. And the first is there's really two different resentencings that were initiated. The first by his predecessor, George Gascon, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, and Hochman is going to pull that back. But the resentencing can also be initiated by a judge. So that one will go forward, and Hochman has made it clear that he's going to oppose the resentencing, just like he made it clear he's going to oppose the habeas petition approximately 2 weeks ago. So Hochman doesn't believe that the brothers have accepted responsibility for their actions, and they've lied and they've made excuses. And some of it's challenging because sex abuse is not a license to kill here in California. So even if the brothers were abused, and I do believe that they were abused at the hands of their father, Jose, that's not a legal justification to shoot and kill their parents, especially Kitty Menendez. So the brothers are in a tough, really legal predicament here. They're trying to pursue the habeas, which you and I have talked about at length, the constitutional violation, the new evidence that wasn't introduced in that second trial. And they're trying to pursue clemency with Governor Newsom also at the same time, and resentencing. And sometimes the three legal avenues that they're pursuing are really inconsistent with one another. Habeas, of course, argues self-defense, that they're imminent risk of death or serious bodily injury. So that's something that you can't admit to, accepting responsibility for everything that you've done the past 35 years and pursue habeas, while at the same time going down the path that Hochman is demanding, full and total confession and repudiation of all these previous lies.
But Neama, to that point there, it seems like Hochman wants the why, not the what. And we have talked about this case so much. The brothers were convicted of the murder. They said they did it, but he wants to know why they did it. Is he ever going to get that?
I don't think so. And I think Hochman has already made up his mind. And, he brought up the Ceron example, interestingly, to try to really put this back on Governor Newsom's desk, but also he's playing a little bit of chess here, because ultimately, of course, Newsom can pardon the brothers at any time, and he wants the legal process to play out first. But what Hochman is doing is using the governor's own words against him, saying in a previous case where someone was in prison for many years, was a low-risk offender, really the lowest risk assessment, exactly like Eric and Lyle Menendez, you chose not to release him because he didn't accept responsibility. And I think the other important point was made, not today, but during that previous press conference, where Nathan Hochman said, even if I met with the brothers, that would not change my decision or opinion. So I don't think there's anything the Menendez brothers can say that are going to change Nathan Hochman's mind, despite everything that he said today.
So I asked Christina Gonzalez this question. I'm going to pose it to you. And from a legal standpoint here, I was characterizing this update today as the case just coming to a screeching halt. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. And, we've been talking about this case for so long, but right before the election, and obviously, everyone's focus was on the presidential election, but really the timing of things matters so much. Had George Gascon just initiated this a month earlier, Eric and Lyle Menendez would be out by now. We would have a very different recommendation from the district attorney's office. Obviously, Nathan Hochman ran on a very different platform. He's not soft on crime. He's really a 180 from Gascon. But this is his first big decision, and he came out pretty strongly against the Menendez brothers. Really, he hasn't spent much time even acknowledging that the abuse happened. What he said is there's no new evidence of sexual abuse, nothing that the jury hasn't already considered and rejected. So I think that the timing of this, the fact that we have a district attorney, that the political landscape has changed, that we're further removed from the Netflix series Monsters, I agree with you, Andrew. I think this is maybe, just maybe, potentially the end of the road for the Menendez brothers, unless Governor Newsom steps in and waves his magic wand, which he can at any moment, to set them free.
So, Neama, if you're Lyle and Eric Menendez and you're following the news today, you saw there Lyle posted on Facebook with his response here. Why don't you just give DA Hochman what he's asking for?
I would strongly consider that because I don't think the habeas petition is a strong petition at all. What the brothers did, even if there's a moral justification for killing your abuser, there's no legal one. So they're not going to be released. So what I would do is I would come out and look, this is all politics, right? When you have a district attorney here in Los Angeles holding multiple press conferences about a case and us talking about it, people around the country and around the world care. I would call Hochman's bluff and I would say, Mr. Hochman, we're prepared to meet with you. We're prepared to confess truthfully as to what happened and why we did it. Would you, if you believed us, recommend resentencing under the circumstances? What if we told you that we did it for greed? What if we told you that we hated, forget the sexual abuse, just the verbal abuse and domination by an overbearing father? Would that be enough for you to recommend resentencing? Because we are not the same people that we were 35, 40 years ago.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to grapple with here. I mean, obviously, initially in the first trial, they did not admit to killing their parents, and then the second trial they did. And this is what Hochman is requesting. He's seeking the why did they do it. He does not buy the self-defense argument here. So if you're Lyle and Eric and you're hearing this, wouldn't you just want to give him what he wants here? Unless so much time has elapsed that they can't even remember. They don't even know why they did it. But they have said they did it, right?
Well, they have said they did it, and they said it at trial. And I mean, I think one of Hochman's issues is their story changed so much, right? First, and he spent so much time today, almost an hour, talking about how their brothers, the plotting and planning, right? Getting the weapons and testing them and the alibi and all the friends they asked to lie. And first telling law enforcement that it was a mob hit or a cartel hit, and then that Jose was sexually abusing and assaulting one of their girlfriends, and then that Jose raped one of them and Kitty raped the other. And ultimately, they ended up with self-defense because really it was the only possible argument once they made the admission to their therapist and that recording came in. When we talk about murder cases, there's primarily three defenses, Andrew. It wasn't me. I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident or manslaughter, something less than premeditation. And the third is self-defense. So they were stuck with really that defense at trial because they didn't have any other viable legal option. And they tried to pigeonhole the facts of the case into self-defense, which really was their only option, but didn't make a whole lot of sense.
All right, Neama, just lastly, what's next then? I mean, what are you going to be watching for? What's the timeline here?
So what's next is the resentencing hearing will go forward. Hochman is going to make a passion plea against it. And of course, the Menendez brothers and their team of lawyers and the family members are going to argue for the resentencing. So it's going to be up to a judge. A judge can do a couple of things: reject the resentencing, resentence them to life with the possibility of parole. We'll put them before the parole board, or resentence them to time served, which is something that even George Gascon didn't ask for and would have released them. So if the case goes to the parole board, it's important to know ultimately it's going to be Newsom's decision. The parole board makes a recommendation. The governor has to approve it. And just like the case that Nathan Hochman talked about today at length, the Saran case, the parole board finally recommended that he be released, but Newsom said no because he had an accepted responsibility. So I think if I were the brothers, I would be focusing all my attention and lobbying efforts on the governor, not Nathan Hochman and the judge.
Interesting. And we know the Menendez family has been so out front, very forward-facing. They're represented by Mark Garagos as well. Neama, thanks so much. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again.
I'm sure we will. Thanks, Andrew.
All right, in the meantime here, let's take a quick commercial break, though, and then you'll hear from